The secret of Avatar The Last Airbender's success is that it is a poignant character drama about the after effects of war, trauma, and morality hidden inside a straightforward, accessible adventure hero's journey story. The Chosen One travels all around the world, making new friends and new enemies and gradually growing more proficient in his skills. After enduring the dark night of the soul he suffers at the end of Season 2 into the beginning of Season 3, he triumphs over his foes, defeating the Fire Lord and restoring peace and balance to the world. When you write it out like that, it kind of sounds formulaic and banal, but there is nothing wrong with using a basic structure if that structure allows you to convey a more personal and heartfelt narrative. However, it would be an interesting thought experiment to consider what would have happened if Avatar The Last Airbender had deviated from that formula. What if the Fire Lord had won? Let me start by saying that our heroes took unnecessary risks. Aang decided not to fight the Fire Lord during the Day of Black Sun after the eclipse finished. They consider the invasion a lost cause as Azula discovered their plans and specifically strategized to defeat these plans. The impulse is understandable, of course, but the conclusion they draw about the Fire Nation and Azula anticipating every single possible move is not exactly right. They did not anticipate Zuko showing up at Ozai's chamber and declaring that he's going to join the Avatar. The Fire Nation did not plan for Uncle Iroh to break out of his prison during the Day of Black Sun, during the eclipse, when the Firebenders lost their powers. Now, I do not mean to draw a direct line between these victories and the possibility of Team Avatar winning even after being out-strategized by Azula. Rather, I invoke these situations to demonstrate how vulnerable the Fire Nation in actuality is. Yes, they have the most powerful military in the world, and yes, they are cunning and strategic. But that does not mean the only option is to flee and fight another day. If Aang and company had remained a bit stubborn and decided to push their luck and fight the Fire Nation right there and then, there is a decent chance that they would have succeeded, even without the Avatar state. In fact, I'd go so far as to say they had a better shot then than they do in the actual final battle. Now, I don't mean to imply that Team Avatar leaving was a bad writing decision. I hate that whole line of thinking where every bad decision characters make is illogical and thus bad, because number one, it assumes there's only one objective, uncontestable version of what the logical decision is, and number two, it assumes that people make logical decisions under pressure, or, like, even at all, which is not true. Despite what it may seem to you when you're watching from the distance you have from the show as a viewer, if you were actually in the situation the characters are in, you would make as many bad decisions as they did. Sorry if that came off as a bit passive-aggressive, it's just a line of criticism that I have never really liked. Anyway, back to the main topic. The decision the characters make is exactly the decision they would make in this situation. It is true to their characters. When a plan goes wrong, it is the natural impulse to say, hey, maybe we should get out of this. Maybe we should retreat and try and strategize again. It's arguably the smart decision, but considering the long game, it's also the wrong decision. They figure that they'll try again when the comet arrives, but what they do not understand at this point is that Ozai is planning to commit genocide on the Earth Kingdom with the force of that comet. So Aang has to fight him during the comet, which makes the safe choice of waiting actually more dangerous. Thankfully for the forces of good and balance, Aang triumphs over Ozai. But what if he didn't? Sokka outright states in episode 3:18, The Phoenix King, that if Aang tries to fight the Fire Lord, he's going to lose. What if that happened? Whether it's because the Fire Lord turned out to be a more formidable foe than he is in the original timeline, or whether because Aang's reluctance to kill the Fire Lord eventually ends up dooming him. The Fire Lord succeeds in burning the Earth Kingdom, turning it to ash, and the Fire Nation takes over all those lands. Azula defeats Zuko and becomes the new Fire Lord, while Ozai reigns as Phoenix King. I find Azula's victory far less believable in this situation than Ozai's. We've seen Azula fight, and although she is very talented, lucky to be born, as Zuko says, she is far from invincible. Were it not for her fire jets, she would have fallen to her death in episode 316, the Southern Raiders. And when Zuko challenges her at the end of the show, she is in the midst of a catastrophic mental breakdown. Azula's precise control of firebending, the thing she prided herself on the most, is no more. She's erratic, fueled by rage and desperation. Zuko does not want to defeat his sister. It's not a situation he wants to face. He cares deeply about her. The comics demonstrate this even more lucidly, but he has to stop her in order to save his country. I don't see any non-contrived way Azula wins this fight, but let's say she does. What if she shoots both Katara and Zuko with lightning? If Katara and Zuko both survive, they return on Appa to the White Lotus camp, badly wounded. Aang also returns there if he survives, though considering Ozai's rage and considering Aang is alone, the odds of him surviving are significantly less. I don't see how the city of Ba Sing Se remains under Fire Nation control in this timeline, considering the Fire Nation devotes its energies to incinerating the Earth Kingdom, not to defending the capital city they've captured. But for the sake of this scenario, let's say that Iroh and the White Lotus fail to recapture the city. What happens next is likely not what Ozai intended. He sought to break the Earth Kingdom and crush their spirit, taking Azula's advice. Okay, but killing thousands of people randomly proves that they have nothing to gain from obeying you. It's not like those who followed Ozai's reign are spared, while those who didn't die. He kills indiscriminately. What lesson are the people of the Earth Kingdom supposed to take from that, aside from that they have nothing to lose from resisting the Fire Nation? Sozin and Azulan's strategy was to colonize the Earth Kingdom, extracting its resources while increasing the Fire Nation's own power. Though Sozin did commit genocide on the air nomads, that is a relatively small portion of the population. The Earth Kingdom, however, is by far the largest nation in this world. It is the Avatar world's analog for China. However extensive Ozai's campaign of destruction may be, it would not be enough to kill most of the citizens of the Earth Kingdom. Certainly not all of them. The Fire Nation's greatest weapon is not its industrial might, but fear. Fear that rebellion is hopeless because the Fire Nation is always watching. I believe it's useful here to discuss Michel Foucault's theories about the panopticon. Jeremy Bentham, a utilitarian in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, proposed the original idea of the panopticon, a prison where all the prisoners had reason to fear that they were being watched, that their activities could be seen at all times. And the knowledge that they are being watched, that in of itself, more than any direct punishment, shifts their behavior. The threat of punishment is more valuable than punishment itself. Foucault takes this theory out of an actual prison and applies it to modern society. We internalize societal rules, Foucault believes, not because there is always a direct punishment to not following them, but because we believe there is always a possibility that punishment could be waiting, because we are always being watched. Something fictitious, the concept that we could all be punished, is grounded in something real, the idea that we're all being watched, that the authorities have the capacity to do such. If the people of the Earth Kingdom collectively rose up, there would be far too many of them for the Fire Nation, a much smaller country spread very thin by military adventures, to contain. But the Earth Kingdom stays silent for the most part because they believe in the threat of punishment that the Fire Nation holds over their psyches. None of this is to suggest that the Fire Nation does not punish the citizens of the Earth Kingdom. It does. But these punishments function less as the state's direct tool for disciplining the colonized population and more for the psychological impact. They serve as an example of what could happen, so it frightens the people and they submit to the Fire Nation's rules. But if Ozai kills these people indiscriminately, he might have a full-scale uprising on his hands, especially if the Avatar is still alive to provide hope and coherence to the anti-Fire Nation movement. The comet will not return for another 70 years, but the revolution against the Fire Nation will not abate anytime soon. So thank you all for watching. If you liked what you saw today, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Donate to my Patreon if you can and you want to see more videos like this. Keep watching Avatar: The Last Airbender. It is a brilliant, thoughtful, heartfelt, challenging, really philosophically stimulating show that I'm so glad is finally getting the credit it deserves. Anyway, tune in soon for my next analysis. It will be coming soon. Thank you all again. Adios, comrades.